In today's video, I am super excited to share with you these super cute mini doll purses. They're so cute, they're so easy to make, and they make for the perfect accessory to a doll. These are, they're perfect. I'll include some better pictures so you can get the full effect. My camera, how it's set up right now, I can't really see the full doll and purse, but it is so cute. And what's so cute also is that they're actually functional. You can unbutton them, and inside you can put other mini accessories. I know these days you can buy all sorts of miniature doll things, and so why not create this cute little purse for your kids' dolls? All right, so let's get started. Now, like I said, these are pretty easy to make, pretty quick to make as well. There are a few things that you want to make sure that I'll go over in this video, because I actually created these probably about 3 or 4 times before I got it right. That I want to make sure that you get right as well. So today, what you're gonna need are needles. Now, I like to use this thick yarn, kind of this piping type yarn for these purses. It just gives them a little bit more like thickness and sturdiness to them. So in these 2 purses, I used these yarns. But today I'm gonna try something a little different, and I'm gonna use this softer plush yarn. So this yarn isn't as stiff, it doesn't have as much weight to it. And so it'll be interesting to see how different, if different, how it turns out. But we're gonna walk through creating these same purses, but in this different yarn. So you'll need yarn of your choosing. I think if you did it with a real like thin yarn, obviously you're gonna have to, if not double or triple the pattern, just so that it's big enough. Otherwise it's going to be like a super tiny purse. It might fit more of a Barbie doll than an American Girl doll. So your thicker yarn, your needles. Now, if you want to include a button on your purse like I have in these, you're going to need a button. You don't need the button because, like, honestly, if I just tuck that in, it's still a cute purse even without the button, but I think the button just adds a perfect little touch to it to make it even more cute. Or cuter. So a button, and then we'll need our threading needle, and I just have a short piece of string so I can put that button on. You really don't need that much string to attach the button. So we'll need this for last, so we can set that aside. You'll also need some scissors. So we'll set all of that aside, as well as the needle, and we'll get started on making the purse. Okay, so as every project begins, we start with our slip knot. Let me just make sure I have enough working yarn up here. All right, so we're gonna start with every project. As always, we'll start with our slip knot. Actually, I'm going to put these on the needles with a long tail cast on. So in that case, we're gonna want, I would say, so if you take the width of the purse or the bottom, I like to do at least like 4 times that. So I would say like I'm gonna attach that much for my long tail cast on. And so I'm gonna create the slip knot at that 4 times, or that 4X spot. So wherever your spot is, I'm just gonna twist it over to create your fish. You're gonna put your fingers through the body of the fish, and then you're gonna hold down the tails, and you're just gonna pull. Okay, so simple slip knot. We're gonna slip our needle right through there. And now with our slip knot, that counts as our first stitch. And if you want the same size purse as this one, it's 10 stitches across. And like I said, this yarn is pretty thick, so we'll see. I'm gonna do 10 again, but this is a smidge thinner, so the purse might end up being just a smidge smaller. Let's see. So we have our long tail toward us, working yarn. Oh, so I'm actually gonna flip this slip knot. So I have my slip knot tail, my tail here, my working yarn in the back, and now I'm just going to go in between, and then I'm gonna go under my thumb, over my pointer finger, on through my thumb, and pull. Again, we got this opened. We're gonna go under my thumb, over my pointer finger, and through my thumb, and pull. Again, under my thumb, over my pointer finger, through my thumb, pull. Under my thumb, through my pointer finger, over my pointer finger, through my thumb, and pull. So there we have 5 stitches. 5 more. Under, over, through, and pull. Under, over, through, and pull. So what do we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 more. Under my thumb, over my pointer finger, and through my thumb, and pull. 8, 9, and 10. All right, so that now this will be the base then of the purse. Okay, so we have 10 stitches, cast it on. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the same pattern here for 6 rows. Again, if you want the purse to be longer, you can do more than 6 rows, but that's how many we have here. So we're going to start with the knit stitch. So our knit stitch is just going to go behind, the needle is going to go in the back. We're going to go behind, around the back there, through the front, and pop it off. If you want to go through the knit stitch more slowly, you can go to my how to knit video and you can get a slower tutorial on how to knit the knit stitch. So we start with the knit stitch. Then we're going to act like we're going to do a purl stitch, but we're not. So we're going to come to the front just like a purl stitch, and then we're going to, just like a purl stitch, come in to the top, but we're just going to pop it off. So we're not going to bring that yarn around, but then now we're going to bring the yarn back so that we'll do another knit stitch. So we'll do a knit stitch. And now, again, we're gonna act like we're gonna do a purl stitch by bringing the yarn forward, but we're just gonna slip off the stitch. Yarn back, regular knit stitch. And now yarn to the front, and we're just gonna slip it off. Yarn to the back. Regular knit stitch, yarn forward, just gonna pop it off, yarn back, regular knit stitch, pop it off there. Now yarn to the front and just slip it off. And so now you're going to bring that yarn to the back so that you're going to start with that yarn that it almost looks as if it's off a stitch, like this stitch basically is off. There's no other yarn like wrapped around it. And that's exactly what we want. And that's where I made my mistake. Somehow, I think I got my stitches mixed up and I ended on a knit stitch, and so the knit started onto this first stitch, which we do not want. So if you're working on this and your yarn is in the front, you did that row wrong. You gotta go back and undo just that row, or start over, or because it's not gonna work. Okay, so now we do the exact same pattern for 6 rows. So we're gonna start with our knit stitch. We're gonna pop it off. Now we're gonna bring that working yarn to the front, and we're just gonna pop it off, bring the yarn to the back, knit stitch, bring the yarn to the front, pop it off, yarn to the back, knit stitch, to the front, pop it off, to the back, knit stitch, oops, yarn to the front, pop it off, yarn to the back, knit stitch, and then yarn forward, and then we always end on that slipped off stitch. So you see how now when I pull my yarn to the back, you can see that yarn is not really even attached to that stitch, right? So every row should end on that slipped purl. Okay, so that's 2. Let's do one more together, and then I'll let you work on your own. All right, so here we go. We got our knit stitch, our slipped purl. I don't even know if it's called a slipped purl. I'm just gonna call it that. Our knit stitch, yarn to the front, slip off that purl, yarn to the back, knit, front, slip, back, knit, front, slip, knit, front, and slip. Sometimes I like to just get into those, a little chant in my head, so that I'm like knit, purl, slip, knit, purl, slip, knit, purl, slip. And that just kind of gets me into the cadence of kind of training my hands to go back and forth. I will say, if are you used to doing the purl stitch, you have to kind of train your hand not to do the yarn around because your hand will probably have muscle memory and want to wrap that yarn around. So just have to tell yourself, okay, in the front, slip without doing the yarn around. Okay, I'm gonna carry on. You carry on your end, and I'll come back once I've got 6 rows. See you soon. Okay, so here we are. We have our 6 rows. Again, you can do a shorter, smaller purse, or even a longer purse or bag if you so choose. So this is the length and size that I want to do. So I'm going to stop here. And now, how I measure the yarn for what I'm going to need next is first you need to measure there and back. That's going to weave the ends together. And then I'm going to just finger crochet and braid this, the handle. So what I like to do, I always like to have a little extra. So I like to do 3. So if that's how, sort of eyeballing it, that's how long I want my handle to be, I'm going to do it 3 times back and forth. If you want a smaller handle, if you want something, more of a shoulder bag and you want to make a smaller handle, of course, do that. and you can just measure then accordingly. So now I'm going to cut my yarn there. I forget this kind of yarn leaves all these little floofs all over. Okay, what you'll need next is then your threading needle. And depending on how thick your yarn is will determine what needle you need, depending on the opening. So this one fits nicely in here. Gotcha. There we go. All right. So how we're going to do this is we're always going to start with the first stitch. And you can also tell, it's hard to tell on this yarn because it's so fluffy, but it's the stitch that doesn't have the knot in front of it. So it's kind of looks like the longer stitch and then a knot, longer than a knot. So we're going to start with the longer, and then we're going to just weave in to the longer stitch all the way through. So I'll just do a few at a time. You'll pull it through, and not too tight, just so it's the same length. And then you're going to pick up these longer stitches and pull it through. And we're not going to pull too tight. We'll just leave it. And so what you should have is kind of like every other stitch. And now we're going to wrap it around to the other side. And same thing. We're going to start with this first stitch, which is the longer one. And here's the one with the knot. I know it's hard to see on this yarn, but I can see it. So you can tell on yours, your first stitch should always be the longer one without the knot. And then again, I'm just going to weave through to every other, which should be your longer. Oops, and I'm a little tangled up here, but there we go. And I'm not going to pull too tight, but just so it stays the same width. And now I'm going to finish up. So I ended there, so I'm going to pick up here and here, and then pull it through, all the way through. Oops, without pulling it off the needles. Okay, so now that you have both sides, the ends of those stitches weaved through at the end, this is the magic. This is what is so awesome and cool about this project. Is my favorite part. So you're just going to slide the needle out, and now check this out. You're going to separate the two ends, and now look at that. Look at that. You have a little purse. It's like magic. So if you pull on the string on the end, you know, it can you can pull it tight. You can make a cute little, you could make a bag with more of that drawstring look on it. You could even just tighten it up just a little bit so that it just has more of a tapered look at the top of the purse, or you can just keep it wide as its normal width. And you just do that by pulling on the end. There we go. So, how cute. All right, so that's our purse, but now we need a handle. So what we're gonna do, our needle should still have our yarn in it, and we're just going to, so here I have my two stitches here on the end. I'm going to stitch them together so that I just have a more solid base that I'm going to start my, and I'm going to go through to the other side. And then I like to just make sure it's nice and secure here on the end, and then back one more time. Okay. And now when I pull it through, I'm gonna leave a tiny little loop, okay? So I'm move this other yarn out of the way so you can see. So I'm gonna leave this loop on the end. I'm gonna pull it kind of small, so it's just like that. And now I'm basically just going to finger crochet the, I don't even know if that's finger crochet. You're just like finger braiding this handle together. So you find your hole, and then you're just going to push your thread through and make your yarn through to make another loop. And then you're going to do the same on this end. You're just going to push your yarn through and make another loop. See, it's just a little tiny loop. And I'm going to push my yarn through and make another little loop. Now you can start to see it's starting to braid on both sides. So push it through, make a little loop, push it through. And now, again, as you're making this handle, you can start to measure it against the purse to see how long you want it. So, I mean, this could be kind of cute too, right? Like making a smaller handle. You could even, well, I guess now we already tied it, but if you had it a little more tapered and this little handle, that could be super cute. But I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna make this a little longer handle to kind of match the other one. So I'm just making these little loops and I'm pushing the yarn through to make another little loop, pushing it through. And now it's starting to get to the length I want it to be. So let me make one or two more. And it just reached my needle, so that's perfect. All right, so here is the braided handle. And so now we want to attach it to the other side so that we have a closed, or the handle's closed on that end. So what we want to do is that loop, this last loop, is we want to attach that loop to the end. And so I'm simply going to kind of make a knot with it. I'm going to go in from the back so that it's like knotting onto itself. And then you just want to go through a couple times so that you're securing it onto the end. Okay, so now that you've gone through this just a couple of times, it should be secure. You can tie a knot. Actually, what I like to do is just kind of weave it one more time in so that it's in the inside. And then when I weave in this bottom tail, then I like to tie them together. And what's funny about this type of yarn is that it all comes off. So I'm just gonna leave that like that. Or I guess I could trim it. Just gonna trim that. Okay. All right, so I have that tail. It's inside the purse. And then I'm going to tie it once I weave the tail into the purse. So let's see if I can get this. All right, so now I have my tail on the bottom. And since this is for a doll, it's pretty easy. You're just really pulling that thread inside the purse. I mean, you can weave it a little bit if you'd like. And especially this type of yarn is pretty forgiving where you can't really see where I brought it in. So now that yarn is on the inside, I'm just gonna tie it together with that other yarn. So I'm just gonna tie a knot into that. You don't wanna pull too tight because then it's gonna cinch those two ends, but you can just tie it in a secure enough knot that it's not gonna come out. And then you can trim those ends. All right, and so there we go. How cute is this? So here's what I noticed between these purses now. This yarn is super soft and I absolutely love it. However, this purse is a lot more flimsy than these two. These are more sturdy. And this one's, I mean, even the handle is pretty flimsy, but it's still cute. And obviously if it's hanging off of a shoulder, it's going to look great. Next is then to add a button. Now again, you don't have to add a button because it's still a perfect functioning little purse as is. But if you want to add a button, what's really cool about this yarn, especially kind of this big chunky yarn, is that there's big holes in it that you can easily separate in between the two yarn. So really what all you need to do is pick the side that you want to attach it to. So what I like to do is just kind of look at what side has, like, sometimes you can tell you did a better job on one side or the other. I think they both look pretty even, so I think it doesn't matter. And then you're actually going to attach the button on the inside, on the opposite side that it will show up on. So as you can see on these, I attached it to the inside on the back side, so that then when I pull the button through, it shows in the front. So here's where we grab our threading needle again. And this time we're just going to take that short string we started with, and we're just going to, oh, you know what? This needle doesn't thread through there because these holes are too small. So if you run into that, let's see if we can just poke it through. Otherwise you just need a smaller, actually I am gonna need a smaller needle because I need to then thread it through here. So give me 1 second. Okay, so here I found this smaller needle and I am weaving my string through the needle. Now, of course, this is kind of a thicker yarn or string. You can use just regular thread as well if this is too thick. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to go behind my button. Just going to pull one side through. And through the button. So that's why I wanted this needle to be able to fit through both ends. Oh, but not my thread. Come on. Just a little extra tug. There we go. All right, so now I have my button, and now I'm just going to simply attach this to the back of my purse. And so this is very simple and probably not the best button sewing. But I'm simply going to sew it onto the back. Since this yarn of this purse is pretty forgiving, like I said, I can actually just tie it right to one of these rows, and I'm gonna just tie it and secure it. Might go around a couple of times just so that it's secured onto the back of this purse. Oops, I just took it off. Hold on. All right, I'm making this look harder than it is. It's actually super easy. I'm just flipping around here, and there we go. Okay, so once you have your button secured onto the back of your purse, just like that, it's inside the purse. Now you can simply push it through one of these front holes. Oh, find the center. That's a little off center. Find your center. And there you go. Look at how cute that is. I absolutely love it. And now you can look at all these 3 different colors and this different type of yarn, but I absolutely love how this turned out.